What up, ladies and gentlemen? Here with an awesome new interview. What's a great way to describe you? I would say expansive, as in terms of music taste, in terms of musical abilities, and that's a thing I see often with bassists, but
Hmm.
someone who's, I guess, everywhere, like in terms of musical ability, in terms of just creativeness. And awesome, super down to earth guy who agreed to be on the pod. Welcome, Mr. Barlow. How are you?
Hi, I'm okay. How are you?
I'm good. I really appreciate you working with me to set this up because this has been a dream. I think what was it? It was in like 2021. Me and a bassist friend who's actually at your show.
Hmm.
Um, I've really bonded over Dino Jr. and I've lost contact with him over the years, but I just remember it was so cool
Hmm.
meeting someone who knew who the hell Dino Jr. were or
Right.
was, and that feeling of home and I belong. I know people who know this weirdo music.
Yeah.
It was nice. So I'm glad we came full circle.
Right. Cool.
And did I ask you how you were doing?
I'm doing fine. I'll just
Oh,
say
cool.
I'm fine.
You
It's
relaxed?
it's a snow day here, so the kids are home.
Oh,
Sort of the
cool.
the unexpected April snow day.
Yeah,
But
see, I'm in Georgia, so it's the complete opposite.
yeah.
It is kind of cold here today though, but I wish we'd have a snow day.
No, you don't.
Why not?
If it happened in Atlanta, it just wouldn't stop.
Oh
It'd
yeah.
be like the snow week, and then people would be dying on the roads because they don't know how to drive in the snow and power lines, and it's just your infrastructure is not just it's just not set up for that kind of
But it would be
thing.
cool. Like I remember in
For
what
you, perhaps, yes.
yeah. What was it? In 2013, we had like a crazy snowstorm. And I just remember the pandemonium, even though I was super young, but like it
Hmm.
was complete absolute chaos.
Yes.
And but the feeling of snow is something that I guess I cherish. But from your
Hmm.
side, I guess it's just something that happens, right?
It's happened pretty regularly throughout my life. Although I did live in Los Angeles for almost 20 years, so that was.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. Los Angeles is something crazy. I guess like the creative boom there is something I haven't really experienced. Like, what is it? Maybe 60% of the people I've talked to have been from Los Angeles, which is, I don't
Oh,
know if
really?
that's just like a coincidence, but
Well, it's a very creative
yeah, that
place. I mean, creative people are drawn there. Yeah, I love Los Angeles.
is there anything specific that you like about it?
It's beautiful. It doesn't snow, and it's also full of creative people. And actually, it's full. It's just an. I like the environment. I like how like Mexican American culture. I like the influence of Mexican American culture there. I like the international feel of the city as well. It is a real melting pot. Um, Yeah, I don't know. When I moved there, actually, I found more creatively minded people that were really supportive and into working, you know. I mean, there is the idea that the city is very competitive, which it is, but underneath that, there's an incredible, there's a huge underground music scene there, and people are drawn there from all kinds of creative pursuits, and some of which I mean, it's just not, it's very different than I think. It's not the cliche that people sort of put on it. I think that's something that I really discovered in my years there. And I think it's beautiful. It's actually one of the most beautiful cities in the world.
Oh
So,
yeah, for sure. The I like you always see the pictures of the mountains in the background, and I'm like a mountain person. Like
yeah.
I'm drawn to mountains, and
Hmm.
seems like a dream. But like it's interesting because I guess that's like the only city I've noticed where you have like the crazy ska and you have punk and you have like new metal and then you
Hmm.
have like you have everything.
Everything.
Like down what in Georgia, I guess we have the folk kind of like REM, Indigo Girls, and we have some, we have Mastodon and we got plenty, but it's not like it really isn't like
Well, George, I mean,
California.
Atlanta's I'm fascinated by Atlanta. I think it's an incredible. I mean, I think especially like R&B
Oh yeah, for
music,
sure.
like black culture there is so unique and strong in a way that I don't know. I mean, obviously in the East Coast, we don't. I mean, it's different. I really like Atlanta, and I think it always feels a little different every time I go there, and I realize more that it's just all these neighborhoods tucked in these little rolling hills, and the way that the skyline has just blown up over the course of the 30 to 40 years that I've been traveling. I mean, it's just it's like Austin, Texas, so you just see it just exploding. It's just been incredible to see over the course of my life. But
For sure. And for me, like the big thing is food, honestly, because like
oh, nice.
there's like some what I guess Thai place. There's yeah Thai banh mi is like dude, you it's crazy. $5 you can get like a full banh mi, and
Well,
I
I
don't
never
know.
got into banh mi. It seems
No,
redundant. No, because it seems redundant to me. It's like to put anything on bread. It's like putting French fries in bread. I'm like, I can't, which they do in England. But
yeah, I've heard about that.
I'm like French fries inside of bread, and I'm like Thai food inside of bread. I just can't wrap my head around it. I'm
I mean, I
like,
think
oh,
that was my first banh mi, and I have to say you have to try it, man, because I was skeptical, but
I have tried it.
you
I'm
have.
just saying it just in my own little quirks. I'm like in bread. I yeah.
I don't know. It's like what was it? It was a pork banh mi, right? And I guess the one thing that's got me out of nowhere was the freshness, which I guess I'll kind of connect to like Dino Jr. and like
Oh,
I guess all
well,
your
I can say the
projects.
Dinosaur Jr., our preferred every night, our preferred food worldwide almost. I mean, unless we're in Japan or something,
Yeah, yeah.
which is its own incredible. But Thai food, always Thai food.
I
What do
mean,
we?
what from Thai food?
Well, everyone has their own things.
Yeah, yeah.
And we always get the little fish cakes. You get the fresh spring rolls. Then
Of
some people like
course.
the noodles. I prefer green curry. That's kind of
Yeah, you
where
seem
I'm
like a
at.
curry guy.
I'm a green curry guy. I like to keep it mild now in my old age. That's one thing. But yeah, Thai food everywhere. Because it's almost like the safest alternative almost anywhere in the country.
Yeah, honestly, it's like wherever you go, you can always bet that there'll be good Thai food.
It's
It's
true.
not always the same.
It is the most consistent.
Oh yeah, for sure. And not even that, it's consistent in a way that it's just consistently damn good. You
It's
can go
true.
anywhere and it's just like it's
It's true. I
home.
mean, I live in a very small town here in Massachusetts, which is not very diverse, let's say. But we did go to the Thai restaurant. We've been resisting it because we're very because I travel so much. I'm a bit of a snob, I would say. And in my own hometown, I'm very skeptical and but there's a place here, Thai place. We went there last week and it was very good. Even in my town, even in my little town, it's still pretty good.
It's nice to hear.
Yeah.
And I guess I'll connect that to the next question, right? Which is, how do you ensure that you keep your creativity flowing into the, I guess like the dad years, like when you're settling down, I don't want to say getting older, but I mean, face the
That
facts.
well,
But
definitely getting older.
I
That is a
mean, you look great, but
unavoidable. Well, thank you very much. But um, uh, creating is like it's such a satisfying thing for me. I mean, um, and then I started doing a podcast about a year and a half ago, which made it so like I have to produce things every week, and that's been pretty awesome. I've always liked the immediacy. When I was a kid, it was like when I made cassettes and we would sell the cassettes for like $1 at our local record store, and that was like immediate. And um, I was really into college radio when I was a kid, so I sent my very earliest attempts at writing songs to this one college radio station. They had a show on Sunday nights, and um, but I don't know. I mean, like being a dad, actually, I mean, that's more of it's a mind fuck, dude. I think before having children, I was a little bit more like, now what? I was kind of like settled into something, and I was almost just like, I don't know. I really like we have children for different reasons these days, as opposed to like back not that long ago. They had children simply to work. They were like, we need more hands, we need more labor, we need, let's have a bunch of them because some of them are gonna die. Like, let's just like, we need hands on deck.
Yeah.
But for my generation, it's almost like a lifestyle choice that you make. You're like, yeah, I'd like to have kids, check out and see what's that's like, and I've always wanted to have kids because I just had I don't know, I had a relatively happy childhood and my parents were pretty supportive and um I think also just historically growing up in this time period, it's like we are despite the chatter that we hear every day and despite the the anxiety that just comes with being alive at any time in history, but we are actually safer and it is less of a risk to have children. And it's so when I had children, I just did it to kind of blow my life apart, I guess. And I would say that I don't even know the effect that it's had on my writing or what I'm going to write about, but I think it's just, I mean, my oldest child is 19 now, so I would say that's taken me 19 years to even really write songs about it, to write songs about how much it has affected me and how much it affects me because it's such an intense, just unexplainable, really. And when I write a song, it's like I'm explaining something to myself, and I still can't explain what the impact of fatherhood is and how that feels. And yeah, so.
That's crazy. Yeah. Super interesting to hear what you have to say about that because I don't know. I felt super adamant about one day I'd love to have kids. It just seems like
Mhm.
fun, like three. I don't know. It's fun to be a kid now, so I can imagine. It'd be cool to be like the cool dad, like you take your kids out to concerts and just I don't know. That'd be cool, but I feel
Yeah.
like I'm pretty alone in that. Not many kids my age are too psyched on that, but
Yeah, not too many people I know were super psyched on the idea either. And a lot of people, opt out and they've opted out, which is, some people go into it out of a sense of duty still to this day, of course. I mean, depending on
yeah.
your upbringing and maybe the religious culture you're brought up in.
Hmm.
But yeah, I've just always thought it would be cool to have kids, but I can say that it's been far more, like I said, it's a fucking mind fuck. But I can tell you, I took my two oldest, my son's 14
Hmm.
and my oldest daughter is 19. And last year, Deerhoof played down the street from my house, like really close, which is crazy because I live in a small town. And I was like, we're going to Deerhoof. I don't know if you've seen this band, but they are just, I mean, I highly recommended you would, I mean, any someone coming from almost any musical perspective would find something in this band. And I took my kids to see Deerhoof and it was amazing. And my daughter, we were in the back of the club and I'm like, oh, we'll just be back here. But she was like, we're going to the front, and I basically followed my daughter as she just barreled her way right through the sold out crowd, right to the front of the stage, which is that's what I always did when I was a kid. It's like, I was never happy in the back because I'm short for one thing, but also you just had to be close to seeing a live band playing. And um, it was really cool. I watched Deerhoof side stage with my son and my daughter, and it was fucking cool, man. So yeah, so what you're imagining, like taking kids to concerts and experiencing things through their eyes and their ears, and having that sense of just, I seeing through other people's. I like experiencing things with other people.
Yeah, yeah.
And with your children especially, it does take on a dimension that's pretty extraordinary. So
Yeah, it's like an extra level of companionship, which seems super cool. Like when I go to
mhm.
concerts, I think I haven't been to a general admission concert yet. I'll be going to go see, I don't know if you know OCs, who are
Oh my
another.
God.
Yeah, I know John Dwight. John is an awesome dude. He was my third
Ah, they're
interview.
like other than Deerhoof. I would put, I mean, OC's possibly better than Deerhoof, which is
Ooh.
saying like a lot. These bands, I mean, OCs are one of the best bands. Some of the greatest shit I've ever seen live, hands
And
down.
they're incredible. And like
Incredible.
the completely unhinged inspiration, like it's completely crazy and you don't know what's going on, but it's connected. And it's I don't know, it's just
Yeah,
so
it reminds me, I mean,
goddamn cool.
the first shows that I went to when I was your age,
Back in my day.
back in your day, were, like hall shows for hardcore bands, but they weren't just hardcore bands. At the time in the early 80s, like hardcore as a style wasn't really, it still hadn't really become like a real tight type of music, like a tight genre. It was still kind of all over the place. Like
Mm,
hardcore bands could all be like, they could be the super fast ones, there could be the kind of not so fast ones, the super noisy ones, the very melodic ones, before it all kind of like went off into its own ways. Like it became speed metal, it became pop punk, it became noise rock. But there was a period in the early 80s where it was just, you didn't know exactly what kind of vibe the band would be giving off. It could be anything.
it's
It
like a
could be uni
surprise.
it could be unity, it could be, hey, we're all in this together, or it could be like, fuck you. And fuck your parents and fuck this. I mean, like it could be like, I'm here to hurt you, or it could be, we're here, it was really exciting. But but I think the reason I'm bringing this up is that the OCs actually managed to recreate, they still have that thing. They create that excitement that I recognize as the excitement I felt when I saw a band just hit the stage and just like, whoa, and just live and direct and without any sort of like commercial pretense, without any kind of like, you know what I mean? Just
Yeah.
pure expression and yeah, so
And it's
that's great.
completely fueled by like them. That's like I talked to Mr. Dwyer, and there's no commercial. He's not getting paid off by any like U.S. military or anything. There's no South by Southwest here, and it's
Yeah.
it's so cool. Like he's a real, I would say genius, easily, honestly.
Oh, it's
But
incredible.
then
Yeah.
that brings me to there's like two ends of the spectrum when it's like creative unhingedness, right? You have like OCs, and that's kind of where I'd put, I guess, Dino somewhere around that. And then the
Well,
complete opposite would be like Swans. So are you like a Swans enjoyer or like a Godspeed You Black Emperor kind of guy?
I was I don't really know Godspeed that well, although I know a member of the band.
Oh, cool.
A member of the band was a roadie for Dino for a while before he joined, but I was obsessed with the Swans starting in, I don't know, 1985, 86, and steadily until about 1990. And that doesn't seem like a long time now, but when I was that age, I mean, when you're talking from 19, basically the beginning of my adulthood, and Swans were, they, everything about them just matched, it just seemed to match my own, like where I was mentally. Like it was like rooted in in so much pain and like but then it began to blossom. It became, because at some point Michael Jura was collaborating with Jarboe, who's from
Yeah.
Atlanta, and it became about love, and it happened right at the time that I, had my first girlfriend, and when I sort of lost my virginity, and when I was like reaching my late 19, like 2021. And so that band was so, like, there's like a huge chunk of my vinyl which is just like Swans, like it's just a huge chunk. And I listened to them loud and I lived it. I loved it. It spoke to my all of the little nooks and crannies of my developing personality at that point. And then I just stopped because it was so intense. It was just so intense that it was, and I just couldn't do it anymore because it just where it brought me was such a specific, intense place, and I was like, I can't go there anymore. And it was funny too when I was kicked out of Dinosaur Jr. in 1989. I was dumped in the summer of 1989, and Dinosaur Jr. had a tour manager that had begun working for Swans, and they happened to be looking for a bass player. So I had, and so he had called me, and this guy, this English guy, Steve, who was a really funny guy, but he was like, they need a bass player. You need to speak with Michael. You need to talk to Michael. And I'm like, what? Like I can't. And if you know Swans, I guess you do. Obviously, you're mentioning them, but I was like, oh my God, I'm like, I have to talk to Michael Jura on the phone. And I did. And he was like, yeah, I can't remember the exact conversation, but I was like, so, we're looking for someone. Are you interested? And I said, can I take my girlfriend on tour? Because I was in the blush of the beginning of this very long-term, very intense relationship with my first girlfriend. And he said, I don't think that will be possible. And I said, okay, then I can't do it. So I had an opportunity
Yeah.
to join Swans. And it was a very, and I think from what I had heard, my very first tape that I put out, my first solo tape was called Weed Forest, and which I had done on a 4-string guitar and sort of a modified baritone ukulele and on a 4-track, and that Jarbo had actually heard it, so they kind of knew who I was. And I was that my first record, Weed Forest, and is actually very influenced by Swans in its own way. So um, I do have the satisfaction of knowing that there was a connection with them, as brief as it was, and it wasn't meant to be. And believe me, I think the idea of actually leaving Dinosaur Jr. and going on tour as a member of Swans could have possibly, if that had happened, I very well could
Completely
be like,
destroyed.
it could have really hurt. I would possibly be covered in piercings and tattoos. I possibly would have been handed off from Swans into some other more. I would have possibly went into a more extreme musical journey than the one that I took. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I took the one that I did take, you know.
Yeah, it's funny. In 14 days, I'll be at my first Swans show, and
No way.
what's Mr. Christoph Hahn, who's their slide player,
Okay.
invited me. So I'll be talking with him, and maybe Michael will be open
Pop
for a
in.
little chit chat. Yeah, I mean,
Oh my
who
God.
knows? But
Oh my God.
it's like he's like a what, like a, I guess like a demon and a god at the same. I don't know. He's like a mystical creature almost, as in there's so much information, right? It's like the complete opposite of like one of those small grunge bands or whatever, because there's so much information on him because he's so interesting. But at the same time, it's like there's not enough. Like I read all
Yeah.
these articles and it's like he's interesting, but there's something I need to like, I don't know. It's like putting the puzzle pieces together. And I don't know. I'm super excited to get my ears blasted out. Like my dad is scared to shit. My dad is like every day when I talk about that, he's like, we need to get better earplugs.
Yeah,
Like
I
he's
would I
so
would
scared.
recommend that as someone who I have severe tinnitus. I mean, it's to the point where it's just a part of my life, and I actually meditate on it when I'm just like it's a part of my life. I can't let it drive me crazy, so
Which
I
is a good
live with
thing, I
it.
guess. Like
Yeah, I mean, it's
meditation
just
is really deeply
I live
rooted.
with I live with. I'm just really I spend a lot of time alone in the dark, listening to my ears screaming at me. So I've but yeah, please, earplugs are
Yeah.
good.
I wear
And
earplugs. My what we're scared about is it going to be strong enough?
well, if you get the ones that what I do, this is a recommendation. They have these foam ones like at CVS.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
like they look like little nipples and they're orange. They were used to be only sold by Howard Light, but now they've actually become like a generic brand that CVS sells. They're 31 dB. They eliminate 31 dBs. And if you put those in, you do it right and you put them in, you get a good seal. You can then get wax earplugs, like wax earplugs that are
Yeah, yeah.
also not the kind that you put inside you put them over. So I put the wax plugs over the top of the foam plugs, which I think would then, which does take a there's that is such a tight seal that I can then hear my ears ringing while I'm watching loud music. So that's that's pretty good. I would suggest that because there is actually none of those earplugs that like it only it leaves the good frequencies in. It's like that is not enough for something, especially for something as intense. I don't know if the Swans are doing as loud as they did back in the day because initially they were just it was like this is like military-esque. This is like military style punishment. This is like and like ruthlessly loud.
No, you
And
heard they did no ACs at some shows. Like 110 degrees in Texas, no AC. Dude, can you
yeah,
imagine that?
he's got a. I heard that Michael Jura makes the. I don't know if that's true, but he made the promoters for every show wash his feet in champagne before the show. I'm like, oh my God.
I wouldn't even be
Yeah, there's a real
surprised,
power. There's
honestly.
such a power. I mean, their early music was so much about power, which fascinated me. I was really fascinated by, and then they also a lot of what they did really echoed. There was an artist named Jenny Holzer, who in the 80s was doing these very strong. The pieces were just simply statements, of just these
Interesting.
very, very harsh statements in black and red, and that was her style. And when I heard the Swans, I was like, well, this is like I'm sure that's just one period of Jenny Holzer's work. She was a New York artist, but I thought that the Swans were the oral equivalent of Jenny Holzer's. I can't remember the name of the body of work that she had done at that point, but they were just these really harsh declarations, and that's what the Swans were. Harsh, and then then matched with just monolithic, monotone, wham.
Yeah.
Anyway.
That's what I love about it because I've been lucky enough to speak to two members. It's funny you brought Jarbo in because I emailed her and she's in the midst of recording.
Oh
But
wow,
in September, she lives I think like 10 minutes away from me. Like we live in
yeah,
the same county.
she's
So
Atlanta
she
area. I'm assuming Atlanta area, but
yeah, at
yeah.
Roswell, which is like 20 minutes out or something. But
Um,
and she said that she's very happy to talk in September. So I
oh,
mean,
nice, that's
hope
sweet.
maybe she'll be at my house. Like that's insane. It's crazy to
Come
think
on
about.
over.
Yeah, I'll make some Indian food like
Oh, sweet.
happily. But I don't know. It's swans are like something else, and I've heard like the crazy things, same things I've heard about swans with the dino shows. Like my bassist friend who I talked about earlier, who I
Mm,
lost contact with.
mm,
Before I lost contact with him, like 3 months beforehand, one of the last things we talked about was he was going to your show, and he came
mm.
out and he told me it was so fucking loud. That's all. Like, dude, I think I was in 2021, which is crazy. But then I guess that'll put me into my next thing to ask you, which is like, how do you maintain relationships with touring and with being so creative, like at liberty to be as creative as you want? How do you ensure friendships and I guess just relationships in general?
Well, I made a decision pretty early on not to be a complete weirdo, I guess, because there is something especially about the way that when I really got immersed in music, I got really into like making tape collages and just this world, and I'm like, well, I could go deeper into this, but it becomes so time consuming and it's so singular. And I really did just there was a part of me that really wanted to play with other people and collaborate. And the first real band, Dinosaur Jr., it was a disaster,
Yeah, I
honestly.
heard
Like
about
just
that.
personally, it was a disaster. And I got really involved in this kind of very odd power struggle with Jay. And when I was kicked out of the band, when I was liberated, I would say, but I mean, thankfully, I would not have liberated myself. I would have stuck with it as long as I would have stuck with it for as long as I could have possibly handled it. But luckily I was liberated. And then when I came out of that, I was like, well, I want to bring in a much more like positive and equal relationships within the bands. And that was my ideal. And and that actually proved to be difficult as well. It's like when you take when like Dino was kind of simple because it was a leader and you had someone who was determining everything, and you also had someone who was like, handing you crumpled $5 bills for your food for the day. There was that. And then when I went into this full democratic mode with these other bands, you realize that like that also kind of creates a vacuum as well because people you don't I mean it's so complicated. You can't it's
Yeah.
people it's like you can say like hey we're all equal and we're going to do this, but it's not that easy because it's sort of this dance between someone wanting to be in control at this point and someone else wanting to be in control at this point, and some point and also people needing direction, like you can't assume that people want equality. You can't assume that people want to make the decisions
Yeah.
because in a lot of cases I find that people actually they don't want to. They're much happier for you to take that role and make the mistake that they can then criticize. I mean, it's just people, we're all looking for different things at different times, depending on all kinds of things, because
Yeah.
everyone's raised differently. Everyone has their own, the buzzword traumas. Everyone has their own traumas. Everyone has their own um, little special secret pathway into them, so that makes equality really difficult. Um, but I think for me, like, besides just wanting to be a human being and function and, wanting to be a dad someday and wanting to have long term, I've had very long term romantic relationships in my life. And I think as far as the music stuff goes, I've been really fortunate. Like, even though all of these, I've had so many bad breakups with people, and I've actually managed to like reunite every band and rekindle every relationship I've had because the music, to me, the music is it. That is the most important thing. That's number one. Like whether somebody likes you a lot or this, like whether Jay like likes me, whether it's kind of like that's not important. The important thing is the music. And then it's up to me to realize to go like well this if my personal boundaries are I I've had very fluid personal boundaries, let's put it that way. So um just because somebody's hurt my feelings or I've had really difficult times with them, I'm still just like, hey, we played some good tunes, let's play. Like I don't really I don't really carry. I mean, I don't carry. I'm not going to say that like I'm a person that doesn't carry resentments and sort of paint myself with this soft brush or the rose-colored glasses because it's not true. I'm a very fierce person, but um music is the most important thing. And all of my relationships with men are based on music. Like I have no regular friends. I don't have any friends like, hey, we went to school together. Hey, let's go out and have a beer and talk. Like I have none of that in my life. Like my life is just about music, and that's all of my relationships with males, and it's about family, and that's all about my wife and my children. And so, I mean, I do. It would be cool later in my life as my life goes on, and especially after raising children, because that is such an intense experience, and I do really want to be present for as much of that as I can be. I would like to have like friends later on that maybe don't do exactly what I do, but maybe I won't. I don't know.
I
But
mean, that's a great way to go about it. And I mean, yeah, if you love music, like I love music, and I'm very happy with just having like complete music friends. Like I was gonna have a jam session today, but someone got sick, which sucks.
yeah,
But
yeah, man. I mean, I really think that, as much as like I think that a person's singular vision is important, and as much as like I mean Michael Jaraza like that, he has a very singular vision. it seems. But I believe that the greatest music is made in collaboration.
Sure.
And not only just collaborate, I mean like and just the word collaboration, it's more than just like it's like that's a highly personal, intimate relationship that you get into. If you really collaborate, if you sit down and you write songs together and you really listen to each other, it's a very intimate, very powerful relationship, which requires it requires maturity, it requires stability, it requires the ability to admit that you're wrong. It requires the ability for someone, I mean, you know, I'm really, it, I'm really fascinated by what collaboration is capable of. And the Beatles, of course, that was a beautifully short-lived, actually, because it was so intense, collaboration. I mean, between all members of that band. And some of the greatest songs that we know of, and like in musical history, were written by two people who would sit. One would maybe, traditionally it would be a guy, someone at the piano, and someone who would be singing and writing the lyrics. And there was a lot of like in the early or in the late 50s and early 60s, there were married couples that did this who were incredibly
Yeah.
successful that wrote, Carole King and Jerry Goffin, I believe. Goffin King, anyway, there's many. Lieber and Stoller are one. They were two kids from LA who were they were teenagers, these two guys, and they pretty much created rock and roll. They were obsessed with black culture and black artists. They wrote songs for black artists in the 50s and helped create rock and roll with their incredibly intimate collaboration and their open-mindedness with music and people and culture, like being totally open-minded culturally. And that's something I always think about that. So that's one thing, I guess, what you're saying, like I just really think that the best things I I I really collaboration is real collaboration is something that I aspire to. I've had it a few times in my life. It comes and goes. But I really believe in it.
Beautiful. I mean, I don't have anything else to say. That was incredible. And so we've got a minute and like 40 seconds left. Zoom, screw you. Give me free Zoom. I'm not paying 6 months. I'm sorry. I say this every time.
I
Corporate,
paid for Riverside. I did it, but it's
is it
different for you.
worth it? I mean, dude, it's
Yeah,
like,
it's worth it. It's fucking worth it. Yeah, I
yeah,
don't
I
know.
think I have to now because like of
But
these
you're
compos are getting great. But
yeah, you gotta yeah, people let it you gotta let I mean, you gotta let it roll.
I know. Hopefully one day, hopefully someday soon. But
Yeah.
it's been an honor speaking to you. I know that the Dino Tour is actually starting in Atlanta. So if you want some home cooked Indian food, I got you. Because
Oh, we're playing a show there.
you're playing too.
Oh God. I love cooked Indian food.
Yeah, please. We're
Oh my
pretty
God.
close to that area. I think like 20, 30 minutes. So if you want to stop by, I'd be more than happy.
Are both your parents Indian as well? Are they from
Yes,
India or
sir.
oh wow.
Or my
Okay.
dad's like more Indian, I guess. I don't know how to put that. He was like born in India for his like young life and then came here when he was like 28 or something.
Hmm.
Um, but my mom is basically all here.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been awesome speaking to you. You're an
Yeah, you too,
incredibly
bud.
cool dude. And
Thanks.
hopefully I'll get to make some Indian food for you, okay?
All right.
Okay,
Yeah,
see ya.
keep in touch. See you.
Yeah.